Boop boop ba doop boo doo. Boop boop ba doop boo doo. Boop boop ba doop boo doo. Escaping dystopia. Oh, yeah, that's right. Don't laugh at yourself. Hello, everybody. We're going to wait while Facebook builds an audience for us. We're back. Back in the world. Yay. We exist again. Been a few weeks off. Oh, yeah, let me put my outline up for the show tonight so folks can know what's coming. And then you can just refresh your thing or whatever if you want, or you can just keep it interesting and let it go like that. As always, and as per, feel free to jump in at any time with anything if you'd like to say something. Part of the whole point of this show is just to talk to people about stuff, so I'm back to talk about things. So tonight, what are we going to talk about? There's so much fun stuff. It's been a couple weeks, so yeah, it's been a couple weeks. Things happen so quickly now, and yet nothing really happens much. It's odd. So we're going to go through some things tonight. We've got the 100 days coming up, so we'll talk a little bit about that specifically. Some spicy Hitler stuff. A little bit of white trashionalism. That's actually our main theme for the show, this phrase, white trashionalism. I think you'll understand what it means as we go through this, and as we continue on through enduring this whole thing. We're going to talk about Gorsuch's SCOTUS of death, Flynn, Putin, Stein, and Le Pen. A little bit about the Nightmares. Perhaps you've heard of them. They used to be the Dreamers. Tripping into a higher state of being. Some new Japanese immigrants? Question mark. Brawndo, the brain mutilator. We'll talk about that. Chaffy Chafftez Out, which is awesome sauce. And then also this week, tax cuts going to be a big deal. So we'll talk about that near the end. But with that, I say it's good to be back, I think, in the new studio. We upgraded our video system as well. So if you like the new camera, you can thank the fine folks over at Google Labs who sold us one. But yeah, so this is the Pixel that is taking this picture. So seems to look all right. So let's get started. So this week is going to mark the 100 days of Trump. It's like a shiver, like this, just gross. So that's kind of been like this traditional marker. It's roughly, 3 months. Congress goes in and out of session, and you basically set the agenda for your term, which in this case, guys, I don't know exactly what. It's weird because, again, we've got this bifurcated society where some people are like, well, I don't know what exactly this person is claiming to have accomplished during this time period, and then there's other people who are like, oh my god, he hasn't stopped doing stuff. It's like he just does it and then things happen and then he goes plays golf and it's amazing. So there's very kind of a strange, but that divide, again, this is the same divide we've seen before between, you've got the rational people, all of it, and then the hardcore right-wingers who get all their news from those sources, and then kind of that muddled middle who's just hanging out, not really, doing much. Again, it seems like a little bit of the muddled middle is turning somewhat against the administration, but again, there's not. It's so muddled, they don't really ever make a choice. That's how there's people still undecided coming November of next election. But so far in this 100 days, we've just seen some really a couple quick examples from real recently with Merkel and trade deals. So essentially, it's come out, and I'll read you this real quick. It says President Trump did not understand that the U.S. cannot negotiate a trade deal with Germany alone and must deal with the European Union as a bloc. A senior German official told the Times of London. 10 times Trump asked her if he could negotiate a trade deal with Germany, and every time she replied, "You can't do a trade deal with Germany, only EU." the official said. So again, this guy, so this was part of one of his things that he wanted to do, was just get rid of these big trade deals. Well, we'll just you and me, Merkel, come on, we'll make a deal. Let's make a deal. Come on, what do you need? What do you want? It's like, we can't make a deal. What are you talking about? So this is another example. And then another quick example. South Korea's government on Thursday sought to correct President Trump, publicly declaring it was never part of China. It's a clear fact, acknowledged by the international community, that for thousands of years of history, Korea has never been a part of China. Foreign Ministry spokesman Jun-Hyuk said Thursday in Seoul, according to Bloomberg News. So this is because when Trump was talking to the Chinese president, the Chinese president, well, Korea has always been, part of China, so, whatever, it is what it is. And then Trump's like, oh, wow, I'd never heard of that before. Because he doesn't go to the State Department briefings about this. He doesn't know anything, right? He's not, he hasn't been in a classroom since, Daddy paid his way through college. So again, the guy's just making a fool of himself constantly. But the thing that's so difficult about this is that a lot of the folks who watch don't know that this is just, that it's ridiculous. And this is where I get to the whole white trashionalism, because they don't know the history. They don't know that, is it surprising that Korea was part of China? Was not? It's like, well, who knew that? I was like, well, anybody who does international diplomacy should probably know this stuff. So those are just two quick examples from this 100 days of bullshit, man. What's going on? I don't know. It's kind of, we're in such weird territory, right? With this whole thing, this whole 100 days of this, and this is where we're at. So this is what's happening. He just keeps making a fool of himself. Some people care, some people don't. It's not sticking. There was the big, this is not a big topic of mine particularly, but there was the big science march yesterday. So people are still motivated and go to the street. That's how you actually really, really change things, because again, this muddled middle doesn't really go anywhere, like in between election cycles. And they're not going to all, even if everybody agreed on something at this point, it doesn't really matter until you get there. But so speaking of which, and this is why kind of this constant outrage thing, which is my next little bit. This happened like a week and a half ago. The Spicy Hitler thing, where Sean Spicer kind of made a reference to Assad and talking about, well, he didn't. This is just another example of these guys. Hitler wasn't that bad. At least Hitler didn't gas his own people. I mean, it's not like the Jews were his people. You just that kind of thinking, and this is why this goes into the white trashionalism part, and this nationalism that's very white, and because they don't think of these people as ours, as their own people. There's this weird notion, and this is why the U.S., at least to me, is a very kind of special place in the world, because there's nothing that, to me, what an American looks like, right, per se. Because I know they've got Americans of all different, shades, shapes, and colors, but that, to me, the ideal here of the American is someone who, comes to this country, follows our laws, agrees, to go along with our system, and part of that is that you just let other people come here that want to do that. Our immigration is a core to our system, and what we're doing now, and I'll get to this a little bit later with the Dreamer and some of that, but what's happening with especially our internal security stuff, like the Department of Justice and the Department of Homeland Security, like the Border Patrol, these things, this nationalism that comes into here, us and who we are is anybody really who wants to, and there are of course rules within that. And I don't think we should have completely open borders. I'm not saying that, but they're trying to define a little bit more specifically about where, and what an American is, and this is where this kind of leads into why one could even think that these weren't Hitler's own people, right? Because they were somebody that they didn't want in the country. So when you kind of divide these lines, like, oh, well, they're not our people. So those 12 million people that are living here in the U.S., subject to our laws, and they're not our people. What matters to them doesn't matter, right? So that's when talking about the immigration and how kind of heartless the way that they're going after this. That's where it comes from, that dividing. That it's a mental thing. It's the way you think about stuff, and that's where that thing was a big gaffe, as it were. But you saw now coming back to now this notion of white trashionalism, and I want to be pretty clear a little bit on this, because one of the ways you could really know if somebody's a white trashionalist if they're declaring how much they love the U.S. while they fly the rebel flag. One of those things where they just don't get that the history says, well, that flag represents people who actually fought against this country. Where's your where does nationalism fall into, rebel flags? Because you have kind of this, that shorthand version of history, that just kind of ignorant history. And so that ignorance builds a big part of the white trashionalism part. The Palin, Kid Rock, and the Nuge going into the White House. Look at these guys. That is white trashionalism. And it's, again, you ask any of them, they love this country more than anybody else. That's why they couldn't possibly have signed up to go serve. I'll give Palin a little bit of credit, because her son did go serve to avoid going to jail. So that was, that was kind of a big one. Just even taking hats off in the White House, I don't know. To me it seems odd. I'm a Southern boy. I'm not, which I guess there's a little bit, that's why I can recognize the difference, I guess, between normal good people and anyway, that was why I got kicked off of Facebook for a week. I got banned. I was talking some smack and didn't really kind of, I guess, cross the line somewhere. But that's going to be a theme that, I wish I had mentioned this, because this is something I wanted to talk about 3 weeks ago, before we'd seen the pictures of the Nuge and all that, so we could have hashtagged that whole business. But we're seeing that big grow. This is the base of Trump. This is that 37%. That's not going to go away as far as support goes, I don't think. And will be enough, the way the districts are gerrymandered, to keep the Republicans in line. Without having balanced districts, right, when all you have to do is appeal to a Republican base, this is who you're generally going to appeal to, is these people who are going to come out and vote. So the gerrymandering thing, I'd love to see something going after that. What's up? Somebody just accidentally clicked on this from a long way ago. What's up, Mr. Acosta? But the thing that I actually want to talk about next, and this kind of sucks for me, because I don't know, I don't talk about this a lot, but this is one of those kind of just, I don't draw a lot of kind of hard lines per se as far as my positions go, which I know people will be like, Roy, what did he just say? But one, I'm against the death penalty. I don't think we should have the death penalty as a society. I don't think it's worthwhile in the way it works. Humans are far too flawed to be a part of the system that allows them to kill each other legally and happily, and with the blessing of ourselves, so to speak. And I wish as a society we could get rid of the death penalty. Instead, what happened this last week is a stolen Supreme Court justice came on and okayed a hurried up death penalty schedule in the South. was it the Arkansas one? So anyway, yeah, that's what happened. So Gorsuch got appointed. They stole the seat. They took the seat. He came in. The 5-4 Republican majority. Okay, there was an appeal to the Supreme Court to stop the executions because they're trying to hurry them up because they have 8 days before this drug that they're not supposed to use for executions, and the company that made it doesn't want them to use for executions, officially expires, and therefore they can't technically, legally kill people with it. So this 5-4 decision made that, okay, so they started killing people. And, that's the Supreme Court that we have now. And well, Scalia would have done the same thing. Yeah, but Scalia fucking died. And that's the thing, right? That's how we are supposed to be able to move forward. We work to elect a president. If there's an opening on the Supreme Court, someone else gets to pick that person. And then I believe the Senate says, no, we don't do shit, man. And then steals that seat and then dances while they do it. And then people dance on the end of a rope. Actually, we'll see. Hopefully, there's no hope in what I hope or what I want to see happen, wish to see happen. I don't know. I would like to see the end of the death penalty during my lifetime, but we'll see. The argument is, for me, fairly simple. I don't think that government should have control over life and death. They should just be helping people. Anyway, Flynn, Putin, and Stein, and Le Pen. So I don't know if you saw the results from La France, but Le Pen and some boring dude that nobody's ever heard of going to the next round, which is next month, I guess, or which few weeks. I don't know. I don't know French election stuff so much. So we'll see what happens there. Yep. I mean, you've seen this whole Western world backlash against everything that's not. So we're going to see if this actually goes. You get Le Pen in there, and then the likelihood of war goes way up, because Europe will then fall apart, I think, fairly quickly. The UK leaving the EU, not so much. They're across the channel. They're not necessarily Europe per se. They are, but they're an island. France is Europe, and without them, the EU just doesn't really exist. So we'll see on that. So that's going to be big news. So we'll follow that a little bit more. The nightmares. There was a dreamer who got deported. This story is actually really pretty horrid, because essentially this guy was over at his friend's house, left his wallet at home, was driving home, Border Patrol stopped him, was dicks to him, he didn't have his documents. 3 hours later, he's deposited across the border. A place that, I guess, I don't know his life story, but apparently he came over when he was about 1, got banged in the head when he was a kid, and not the sharpest tool in the shed, but sounds like a pretty good tool. And then Border Patrol loses their record of deporting him. Oops. And then later claims that he didn't file his paperwork right. No, he did. And so there's going to be this is a big problem on the dreamer side, because again, what happened with this, and this is something that you go into, they have that here. There's a little bit of that here in the Colorado where I live, for folks who put themselves on that red card list, right, for medical marijuana. Probably not as big a risk, but the dreamer is quite a bit different, because you're giving the government, again, your name and your address and telling them everything about yourself, with the agreement that we had from the previous guy, who was a really good guy, named Obama, who promised, said, hey, look, you guys didn't put yourself in this situation. This is the only country you know. It's a great place. We actually love immigrants here. We're going to work this out. We'll figure it out. Here, you're going to be okay. We're going to defer your deportation for a little bit. So that's been kind of, and so this other guy comes in and is like, well, you guys are all breaking the law. But he wasn't supposed to go after these people, because they do this, and there's already a huge fear. I heard a couple of news stories, and feel free to reach out if you don't believe me on this. In the immigrant community, a great deal of fear, and one I think that you're going to start seeing economic repercussions from before too long. NPR had a couple stories about it this week, but you'll see that, as well as the tourism stuff that's going to kick in. But excuse me, sorry. When you go after people who have done everything right and been good, you're not making any friends. And that's going to just drive this whole underground thing. And then you have this situation where people who are underground can't go to the police, because again, if any time that you interact with law enforcement, they're going to take you away and you get robbed. what do you do? So you start to get creative, and then that's where things get chaotic. So there's a lot more chaos going on there, and I don't like to go into that a little bit, but I do think kind of that chaos, crazy world that Trump was talking about during his campaign, he kind of wants to create in a certain sense by being dicks and whatever, and then to solve the own problem that he created. Yeah, whatever. I wouldn't doubt that conversation has happened. I don't think you can do that. I don't think it works like that. The reason I don't think it works like that is as we segue, tripping into a higher state of being. Let me read this real quick. This is actually kind of fun. It says here, let me see, this was from Newsweek. There was somebody scienced. And there were psychedelic drugs such as LSD and ketamine cause the brain to enter a higher state of consciousness, according to scientists. Scientists said that. If you pick 4 words out of a paper they wrote. For the first time, a new study has shown the diversity of brain activity increasing as a result of taking these drugs. Scientists say the findings could lead to new treatments for mental health conditions, including depression and schizophrenia, as well as answering fundamental questions about our conscious experience. This actually is pretty interesting. You dig down a little bit into the story, and let me read you what they actually measured, which is they measured the tiny magnetic fields produced by the brain in different states to look at differences between the 3 drugs and normal consciousness. Their findings showed that the baseline for brain signal diversity when people were on psychedelic drugs was consistently higher than when they were in a normal waking state. What they mean by brain diversity is, what we mean in this study is the measure of the mathematical diversity of brain activity, which, very roughly, is how unpredictable the activity of the brain is. We use this because this measure has previously been applied to try and track changes when people fall asleep or go into general anesthesia, would generally be thought of as a lower state of consciousness. So they look at this notion of kind of a little bit of like randomness in the brain to look at how much brain diversity activity is going on, and then, you take some acid, and that goes up tremendously. The problem, and this of course is like, I'll take what's 2 plus 2 plus obvious. To know that brain diversity increases from psychedelic drugs is duh. But what is interesting about this is they're starting to be able to study in a lab with a little bit more precision than you can do on the weekends, at the fish show. So I think they're actually coming here in September, speaking of which. Anyway, yeah, so I have taken a number of these drugs at previous earlier times in my life, so I can speak a little bit about this as someone who's a little bit kind of aware of brain activity and this kind of stuff, and had studied some of this prior to that as well as afterwards, and I'm not in the slightest bit surprised at these results. I think, personally, one of the things for stuff like PTSD and other depression and stuff like snapping something out or breaking a pattern, these kind of drugs I think are useful because... So I think one of the things that really marks our life and the way our brain remembers things is highly intense situations, right? When you almost die is a big one, where your brain remembers this, and this is the PTSD, and these are very intense memory brain things, and then as something kind of, this word is so overused, but triggers the memory involved with that, you can experience that same kind of thing. One of the things that these psychedelic drugs do, and this is through the use of neurotransmitters, essentially what these do is turn on your neurotransmitters, just turn them on. There's no wait for the puppy to pet you before we get you a little happiness. No, it's just... But what these experiences allow you to do is have another intense experience that allows you to be in that intensely heightened, happy emotional state, and then to go through that deeply disturbing experience and mix the two. And so then the next time when you start to to relive and go through that. You have, well, yeah, there was that, and then there was that time that we were doing E on the beach, and there was the sunset, and we were talking about it, and we actually reached that conclusion. And those kind of cognitive therapy, right, as you work through and understand how events and experiences has affected you, along with that subconscious level, emotional, because these are intensity, emotional intensity that can come with these types of drugs. So I do think there's a great deal of therapeutic potential in a lot of this stuff, as well as some really good times to be had. Anyway. Speaking of good times to be had, new Japanese immigrants. So Japanland, which actually I think is just called Japan in Japan, Nippon. I don't know. I'm not. I've got a friend who lives there now. He is not Japanese. He is teaching some of the people who live there how to speak English much better, and he's a wonderful, nice guy. So they will have wonderful, wonderful impressions of Americans. Thanks to him. He's a good guy. I am curious to see if they're going to let him become Japanese. I believe his wife is. And the thing is, my understanding of this, again, I'm pretty dumb and stupid, but their culture, Japanese are pretty proud of their culture. That they've been on that island by themselves for a while. They kind of think that's where life started and culture started. And, you know, there are other places, but, you know, why would you go there? So, you know, they don't have a lot of immigration. It's a very different culture, right, than the U.S. culture, where we have this, to a time, up to now, we've been very welcoming in the idea of this tired, huddled masses yearning to breathe free and build amazing space rockets and interstate highways. But anyway, so Japan's different from that. They don't really do a lot of immigration. They need to now because their population is aging tremendously. And I believe roughly 2050 is when they're going to hit one of those kind of collapse points when they're like 1.5 workers for every retired person, which will be a difficult society. I mean, you can only have so many robots doing everything. We'll see. I don't know. They're gonna get there before us. Because up to now, again, we've done pretty good having immigration and bringing in new people, new good blood to keep things vibrant. Speaking of new blood and keeping things vibrant, turns out that drinking one diet soda a day will roughly triple your chances of dementia. Yeah, and like brain stroke, like real bad brain stroke. So there's something in this, and hopefully it gets studied. There's so much money in this. This is why I was talking about Brawndo, the brain mutilator, because again, part of the reason why they didn't want to stop using Brawndo in the documentary was because, of course, that would cause the stock price to crash. Now, if it comes out that, of course, cell phones cause brain cancer and diet drinks also cause brain problems, and that's why we see so many brain problems nowadays, there's going to be lots of lawsuits. So we'll see about that. This is one of those things I keep following because I do think that we've introduced a number of chemicals into our society that are going to hurt a lot of people. So we've got to keep an eye on that. I mean, again, asbestos used to be like the wonder thing that didn't cause fires. Spray it all over your house, man. You can try and set it on fire with a torch. Won't work. Yeah. I'm fine. Asbestos. Jason Chafftez is not gonna run for Congress. Hopefully he'll be in jail before 6 months is out. There's one of those, like, you've heard of it if you're a political junkie that's not a right winger. The Palmer Report apparently said that it's gonna get indicted because whatever, a bunch of campaign finance money. So we'll see what's gonna happen to him, but that's great to see because that guy's a douche. He's a douche. Jason Chafftez, douche, not running for Congress. We'll see what happens to him. I think he's going to jail or something. I don't know if he has anything on Trump to turn. But he's the reason. This is actually somebody mentioned this. You know how you heard that Comey was investigating Hillary Clinton again? That's because Comey sent this guy an email and he published it. So that's why you knew that right before the election, 11 days before the election. But anyway, somebody apparently paid him money for that. This, again, is off the Palmer bullshit. So we'll see if that sticks and that lives it. If that pans out, I believe, are the two words I was looking for there. We're doing it live! Screw it! Oh my god! How have I not been talking about Bill O'Reilly? I don't have to talk about him ever again. Oh, I knew there was some big news that I'd totally forgotten about. I knew there was something. I knew there was something. Colbert has been doing so good. Such good work. Oh my gosh. Bill O'Reilly, and this is a guy who, again, at the end of my book, there's a few people who are making this country stupid, dumber, and he's one of them. I'm just by name, one of the top, has been one of the top 10 people I want to punch on TV for years and years. I totally forgot that. Oh, Bill O'Reilly out. How did I forget that? See, this is what happens when you kind of are still moving into your new house. And trying to do some fun little web show for whatever reason. Bill O'Reilly's out. What was the dance? Colbert was doing, his, he did it off camera because he's classy. I guess I'm less classy than Colbert. Of course, he built this whole show about the other guy, so there is that. Yeah, what Fox. I mean, it's just so the thing that's kind of sucks about it is Fox ran its purpose. It ran its program. It destroyed Hillary Clinton. It beat Hillary Clinton. And that Roger Ailes, Bill O'Reilly, it took them down, but it took her down, and that was the point. And that was their whole thing that Fox did for 20 years was go after her, and after her, that's what else are you guys gonna be good for? I mean, you're not. I don't know. So they've got to get new people anyway, because they spent it. They done shot that load at Hillary, and they got it. They got her. We'll see. I still think the investigations are going to prove that there was stuff that's close to treason. But anyway, Bill O'Reilly's out, so that was great news. That was wonderful, awesome, super great news to see. I mean, you can't really put... I mean, there's a scale, right? 1 to 10. 10 biggest douche... number 10. Number 10. I mean, the next one would be, well, you don't like to wish death on people, but, that Limbaugh heart attack. We missed that, though. He lost a lot of weight a while back, so that's not going to happen. But whatever. Who cares about these people anymore? Oh, they're so dumb. So next week, what's going to happen? And I'll be talking this next Sunday. I'm about going to wrap it up. I did my 30 minutes. And I don't want to bore you people forever and ever just for 30 minutes. We're going to do tax cuts. So this tax cut plan, nobody knows what this tax cut plan is, but it is the hugest, best, greatest. He's so dumb tax cuts plan ever. He's stupid. I mean, this is... Can we stop? Can we stop acting like the guy's not a moron? Some, please, news media people, please. Just because he shot people. He shot missiles. Good job. Still a fucking idiot. Sorry. I think I might get banned for that. There was one other weird news thing that I did want to talk about. But it's kind of, we've talked about everything, and I've covered it all. Thanks, everybody, for dropping by. There were two people... Where were those two people? I've got it on my phone. They were trying to have a baby, and they couldn't get pregnant. And they went to the doctor, and the doctor checked them out, and he's like, you guys are twins. That's why you can't have a baby. And apparently their parents had died when they were young, and they'd both been adopted. And they met each other later and had similar life stories. Got along great. Had the same birthday. Started having sex. Couldn't have children. I don't know. That's the world. I think, and that's one of those things. You'd always wondered, right? Can twins like, have kids? Doesn't look like it. So that's cool. I mean, and that's not one of those things that you ethically, scientifically contest, right? You can't. But did happen, but didn't happen. So there's that. And with that, my mother-in-law's on, and we're out of here. No, I'm just kidding. I am out of here, and she did just come on, but that's all good. Just playing. Thanks, everybody, for dropping by. That was the weird news for the night. It's been fun. It's been dandy, and I will see you next week. I'm going to try and do this more consistently. I'm also going to try and update the website. We now have, like I said, things kind of settling down a little bit. Got to go fishing today. The little boy caught a little fish, so we're kind of getting into the house. So we'll be able to do a little bit more, and I appreciate everybody dropping by. You guys have a good evening, and I love y'all. Peace out. I'm trying to hit the button. I'm going to hit the finish button.